Hey everybody, I'm John. That's Lance. You can hear us mornings on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. Hit subscribe if you haven't yet so you can get all of our content here at SportsMap HOU. Lance, is this the best run of pitching in Astros history?
It's the best I've seen. I made that comment on Twitter, as a matter of fact, and what happened was I got a lot of pushback about, don't you remember when it was Roger and Andy? I'm like, well, it's not what we're talking about. I didn't say this is the definitive best staff they've ever had. It is the greatest run over, 10 to 12 games at least, where you see starting pitching that is just completely dominant. I mean, one-hitters, no-hitters. It's almost impossible to get to the starters for more than 2 runs. The strikeouts, 20 strikeouts, like 27 strikeouts over 14 innings and 1 hit for Christian Javier. And that's like your SP5. That's what he came into the season as a reliever, and he jumped into an SP5, a starting pitcher 5 role. And then when you factor in the quality starts from Wandy, for example, and what he's given you, really all the starting pitchers are giving you quality starts, and you can't get more than 2 runs against them. That's the most you can get. This stretch that we're talking about, John, they're under a 2 ERA, and this is, we're talking about these guys going almost 3 times through, 3 different, at least 2 games for each of the starters where they've been dominant in a row.
Right, and Wandy, who has been out of the league for how long, to be throwing the way that he's throwing.
Did I say Wandy again? I always call Fromber Wandy. When is this going to stop?
I don't know
when it's going to stop. The national nightmare continues.
I don't know. I would agree. You had the Mike Scott era. You've had, that was just awesome. You had Nolan and JR, but this is, and listen, this may not be.
5 starters are doing it.
The 5 starters, all 5 starters are doing it. And Odorizzi in the middle of that thing, I felt so bad for him. I felt so bad for him that he had to come up. Yeah, even in his interviews, he was like, yeah, well, we're just going to have to talk about it because we don't know what's going to happen. We have no idea how I'm going to get back here or what's going to happen with me or anything else. And it was like he was being pissy about it. And I'm like, dude, how can you even think that you should be in the middle of this thing? Honestly, the way that these guys are pitching, I wouldn't want to move into this. I wouldn't want, even if I'm a great, what is Lance McCullers thinking right now?
Well, I mean, to me, Jake Odorizzi, that's easy. You just put him in a bullpen, and when we need you, we need you. When we don't, we don't. We'll just play this contract out and maybe look for an exit for you at the trade deadline potentially. Lance McCullers is trickier because last time we heard from him, his velocity was at 93, so it's not where it needs to be yet. He was excited, but he had thrown a slider that day, and that he had worked on some curveball stuff on a flat mound, and so on the ground, flat ground instead of the mound. So it sounded like he still had a ways to go before he'd be ready. And even once he's there, it's a guy who hasn't pitched since last fall. So what do you do with Lance McCullers? All the toughness and swagger in the world. You love his stuff is as nasty as anyone's stuff. He's put in work on World Series appearance teams and a World Series winning team, but I don't know how you disrupt the starting lineup.
And it's almost like saying no hitter during a no hitter. It's almost like I don't want to be I don't want to get in the middle of this thing and mess it up because it can't be any better. Maybe he's gonna feel good. A little salsa. But here's the thing. When you're eating salsa, I know what you should do. You should drink cold, clean, crisp, refreshing Coors Light. It's the world's most refreshing beer. It keeps your salsa chill. It keeps Texas chill. You know how hot it is out there? And you need chill. If you're looking for the best way to keep Texas chill, cold, clean, crisp, refreshing Coors Light. It's the world's most refreshing beer. You think, okay, so in the postseason, there's going to be 4 starters. You make the choice who's not going to start, okay? Because I can't. I would imagine right now it's probably Urquidy,
right?
That is your 5th starter. I'd guess. So, do you still need another bullpen? Stanek is great. Presley is great. Montero is great. Obviously, Maton is having his problems, but we've seen him in the postseason pitch really, really well. I really like Seth Martinez and what he's doing. Brian Abreu looks really good, really good. I don't know that you can count on these guys in postseason in big competition. But whoever falls off, Odorizzi, Urquidy, maybe McCullers, do you still need bullpen help when you got all of these guys that are in the rotation that could move into there?
Well, but they have to. There's only one guy that can throw from the bullpen. I would argue that I don't know that he's as impressive, even though the starting numbers and the relief numbers look very similar. In Christian Javier, the starting numbers with him going 2 and sometimes 3 times through a lineup, and he's still as good as when he sees pitchers. I see him players one time. His numbers are still the same. I do find, like, for right now, no way you move Christian Javier back to the bullpen. I do think that it's an interesting conversation when you say you're going to go 4 starters and you're as deep as Urquidy and Luis Garcia, who both have World Series starts and appearances. Then you start to think to yourself, man, it sure would be nice to have a high strikeout pitcher like Christian Javier in the pen to go with Stanek and Presley and Javier. Like, I could see where you could get excited about that potential, but you also have a guy who's a high strikeout pitcher for 6 and 7 innings. Like, how do you get out of that? How do you get away from that? I don't know.
No.
It's hard to get away from the guy who might be right now the most electric starter in your rotation right now.
Well, I'm of the opinion, you know what? Unless he's a high end and you can't miss a reliever, I'm going to go with these guys that are in. I would much rather. I don't mind Jake Odorizzi in the bullpen. You know what, Jake? You got to learn it. I'm sorry. I don't mind. If Lance McCullers comes back and he can't throw 7 innings anymore, hey, Lance, how about give us an inning and a third of your best stuff?
But that might be as an opener. Like, what they could do is go 3 innings with Lance McCullers, and then Jose Urquidy takes over after that. I think once you get to the postseason, all bets are off on the way that you manage your pitching for the Astros, because you could see those flare scenarios where you have one pitcher expected to go 4 innings and the next guy going to follow it up for 5. And that was something that worked for the Astros in 2020 when they had to do it with COVID. I think it's something they could look at again with having 6 potential starters, 7 potential starters. By the time the postseason rolls around, they might say, hey, Lance, let's get you in there and let's get your best for 3 innings, and you go as hard as you can. And then, after that, Urquidy or Javier or somebody's going to take over and go the rest of the way.
Well, and the good news is you don't have to give up any good young talent because you got it right here. So you don't have to make any big trades unless you go get that center fielder, in my eyes. I think you've got enough pitching to win a World Series right now.